Welcome to episode 15 of the 24-Hour Hustle Show, and today we got special guest candidate running for PA State Representative, Aerion Andrew Abney. Welcome to the 24-Hour Hustle Show. I'm your host, Anthony Freeze, and today we got special guest Aerion on the show. It is definitely a privilege and an honor to have you on. I've seen a lot of the work that you've been doing via social media, and we also have a lot of mutual friends. So when I got the opportunity to finally meet you, I was like, definitely got to get this guy on the show.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you coming on.
Having me, man. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here. 15 episodes in, so congratulations to you.
Appreciate it.
For all the hard work and effort and dedication you're doing to create this platform for people to be able to tell their stories and tell what's going on.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to get into this conversation with you.
That's good.
Because I know when we sat down before, the conversation was great. I loved it. I felt the chemistry was definitely high. So I'm definitely excited to get into this with you.
Absolutely.
So how's everything been going the past couple of days for you? How's everything going as far as running as a candidate?
Very busy. Very busy, as you can imagine. You know, we have a lot going on right now. I know if anybody who knows me and kind of knows my background and my history knows that, you know, since my, entire adult lifehood, I really decided that I wanted to dedicate my life to a life of service, right? And so whether that is my time when I would do community service out into the different neighborhoods, to my time when I worked in government and I did constituent services, to my experiences in philanthropy, and I'm a philanthropist and giving out over $1 million in grants all across Allegheny County to different nonprofit organizations, to my time doing community organizing and creating the first ever community and police relations sporting event in the city of Pittsburgh ever.
Nice.
So for me, I've always been about trying to improve the quality of life for people in the community. And so this is just another extension of that. This is an opportunity for me to kind of continue that experience. And so, as you mentioned, we did launch a campaign for state representative for the 19th Legislative District. It includes neighborhoods. If anybody lives in the Hill District or uptown, downtown, go over to the north side, Manchester, Mexican Ward Street, Central North Side, Brighton Heights, Perrysville South, Perry Hilltop. Then over to the south side, it has neighborhoods like Beltoover, Knoxville, Allentown, Arlington, parts of Oakland, Oak Hill, and then all of Hazelwood.
Nice.
So if you know anything about those neighborhoods, it's a very eclectic district, very diverse. It crosses all three rivers. But, as we've been going around and talking to people throughout the neighborhoods, a lot of things that we've been hearing is that, as Pittsburgh is going through this shift and this change in its identity and kind of what it's going to be for the next 5 or 10 years and into the future, a lot of people are looking for some real leadership to be able to take us into that future. And so for me, I saw this as, an opportunity to step up to the plate, to use some of my experiences that I've had in philanthropy and politics and things of that nature and social work to take on that leadership role and kind of move people forward, move the district forward.
Nice. And leadership is definitely a big key in that.
Absolutely. It matters.
It definitely does. I'm a big proponent of leadership and, and being able to inspire people to do good and just be able to provide for the community. And what I really like what you're doing is you're actually putting in the work and doing it. Which is one of the things that I've noticed about you. And I love to surround myself with people that are trying to do good, not only just for themselves, but for the people around them.
Absolutely.
Because those things tend to come back to you. When you do good and you provide a good service to other people, those good things come back to you.
Karma's real.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a real thing.
I believe in it, yeah.
So 2018 is looking big for you.
Yeah,
I can say that for sure. And
you,
I'm excited about it, seeing how it pans out. So, like I like to do on every episode of the show, I always like to find out the origin story of somebody and just figure out where they've come from, what's inspired them, what's influenced them, because there was a point in time where you weren't doing all these different things.
Not at all.
You know what I mean?
Wasn't even on my radar. It wasn't even my thought.
So I know for me, I didn't always think about doing media or doing a show and things like that. So there's different things that influence people throughout the years that makes their decisions on what they want to do or become and things like that. So tell us your story, all the way back to the beginning, and tell us a little bit about yourself, some of the things that has influenced you, and how you became to who you are today.
Yeah, so I am actually a transplant here to Pittsburgh. I'm not originally from here. I'm from the east side of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia.
Okay.
From Philly, West Philadelphia.
We won't hold that against you.
West Philadelphia.
Born and raised.
Yeah.
On the playground. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's cool because you know what? When I go and I speak to like high school students or like grade school students, I always do that on purpose to see if they still are going to like respond to it. Yeah. And like to my surprise, they get the song and I say, I'm from West Philadelphia. They're like, whoa, born and raised. And I'm like, all right, I'm not that old. Okay, good. I can still
You're like, people still know what the Fresh Prince is.
I can still connect with them. Connect with them. So I'm from Winfield. It's a neighborhood in Philadelphia. It's called Winfield. I am the youngest child, so it's my mom, my dad, and my older sister. I would say we grew up. We didn't grow up with a silver spoon in our mouth, but we also didn't grow up in abject poverty either. So it kind of was this ebb and flow of experiences of good times and then hard times as well. And I look around and I think about, for me, I had the fortune of being able to go to private Catholic school, me and my sister, all our life. And I think that definitely has played a role in the foundation for who I am today. And while I was there, I didn't really like it, right?
Okay. Why is that?
I complained to my parents because I was one of maybe like 5 black people.
Okay.
People who look like me. And throughout my K through 12 experience, I only had one African-American teacher, a woman African-American teacher.
Really?
Right. So I never really got to see people who looked like me, but I lived in a community where everybody looked like me. So all my friends that I would play with in the street or football practice, track practice after school, I would see them just during those times, but I wouldn't see them, during the school time. So for me, it was sort of a challenge to sort of find my identity being one of a few black people. But I look back, everything hindsight's 20/20. So you look back at it in retrospect. One of the things that it did for me was it instilled a lot of discipline in me because we had nuns at our school. But it also allowed me to interact with people who didn't look like me and be able to be comfortable interacting with someone who didn't look like me, so that when I became an adult, it wasn't like a tensious kind of relationship or experience for me. So
right.
During the time I complain about when I talk to my parents now, I'm like, I appreciate it. I'm grateful. And so, I would say on paper, we probably were like that lower middle class kind of thing, but in reality, we were probably like working poor, right? So my mother was very smart in the sense at an early age, she understood the power of like land and ownership and real estate. And so she didn't have a lot of cash, but what she did have was really good credit, right?
Yeah.
She had really good credit. And she still does. And so for me, that's why I take my credit so seriously, because she instilled the importance and told me that credit is king in this society. Credit is like gold. It's more powerful than cash. And so she was able to take out mortgages and loans to be able to own like 2 or 3 properties that she rented out. So while that money would come in and then it would go to the bank, some of that leftover money that she was able to get, she was put towards our tuition for us to offset some of the costs for my sister and I. So I'm forever grateful for that. And then it's funny because when we grew up, we didn't have cable, right? We didn't have cable TV, and I was like one of the only kids in my school that didn't have cable. One, because I went to this private Catholic school.
Right.
So when I would go over to like their houses, like, oh, Nickelodeon. What is this?
You're like, what is this Nickelodeon you speak of?
This is cool. But I can remember going to one of my friend's house, Caucasian friend, and out in the suburbs, I'm just looking around. And it's like, it was a different world. It's like they got 2-car garages. One has a Mercedes in it, the other one has a BMW. You know what I'm saying? They got this big old yard, and I'm like, okay, this is different. This is a different kind of lifestyle. And I'll never forget. Maybe 4th grade. He came over to my house, and we're in the city, and we're sitting on the porch. It's him, myself, and my mother. And he goes to my mom. He's like, Miss Dawn, are we in the city? But the way he said it is like he heard horror stories about it. He was like, we're in the city. He kind of looked around. And I'm like, what is this?
What's the big deal?
It's not the big of a deal. So it was like this dynamic of me being in this school, and trying to, fit in and find my place, but knowing that I was actually different than everybody else. But I remember, on several occasions where, we would be in the house just watching, on a Friday night. I don't know if you remember TGIF.
Oh yeah,
it's come on ABC, right? So we didn't have cable, so that's all that we watched. It was probably like Family Matters or Funny Song Video or something like that. And I remember
dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Boom. Throwing back the retros.
Yeah. So I remember, and we had the old school TV, like with the wood grain around it, like the floor model Zenith.
Oh wow.
TV.
I had one of those too, so I know what you're talking about.
Like when they go out, you put a TV on top of it.
Exactly. I had one of those too. No lie.
So we had those, but I can remember on one time specifically, like we were sitting there, all four of us just watching TV, and like the power went out. The TV went off, lights went off, everything. And so my dad gets up and looks at my mom, and then he goes down in the basement, like try to play with the switch things down in the basement. But I get up and I look out the window, and nobody else on the block's lights are out.
What?
So I'm thinking like, oh, maybe it was a power outage or something like that. But nobody else. And so, my dad comes back upstairs, and we may as well go to bed. We just go to bed. And so I don't think nothing of it. But later on, as I get older, I realized he ain't pay electric bill. You know what I'm saying? So it was him making a sacrifice and saying, okay, well, am I going to pay this electric bill, or am I going to pay my kids tuition to go to school? Because for him, growing up, he didn't have a college degree. Neither him or my mom had a college degree. I'm the first in my immediate family to graduate with a college degree.
Nice.
And he always said the school that he sent my sister and I to was a school that his mom wanted him and his brothers to go to. And every time they drove by when he was a kid, his mom would say, I wish I could afford to send you to that school. And so he made a commitment. He said, when I get older and I have kids, I'm going to send them to that school.
Nice.
And so him and my mom just sacrificed so much for my sister and I to be able to kind of be where we are right now. So
a lot of humble beginnings, for sure.
Humble beginnings. And so, I always tell people, well, me, realistically, I am always in a position where I'm mindful that I could be one or two paychecks away from being in situations where people I'm trying to help them get out of those situations, right? And so while I may not right now live in those conditions, I recognize them when I see them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when I see it, I can identify with it, and I can try to help to get people out of those conditions. So for me, fast forward a little bit, child grew up, and I ended up coming to Pittsburgh in 2006.
Actually, real quick, before we get there, who was like some of the people that influenced you in your life to, for the importance of like education, and what made you to make the decision to get into social work when you did come to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, so education has always been part and parcel of my life, right? My dad used to always say, my dad was big into athletics. My dad plays semi-pro and like a year of pro football, like he was on the scout team for the Jets, right? So he was always into sports, but he always try to get my sister and I to use sports as a medium, a platform to get an education, right? So he would always say education is the great equalizer in a society. And as a kid, you don't really understand it, but as you get older, you understand it.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, yo, this doesn't rub off, right? And so you're gonna need an education to be able to try to level the playing field. So my dad always pushed that. Like if we didn't have good grades, we couldn't go to football practice. We didn't have good grades, we couldn't go to track practice, stuff like that.
So dad was a big influence on your life.
Dad was a big influence, and then he was also an influence. And it's funny, I had this conversation with him, not too long ago, because for a long time, I didn't know why I got into social work. Like, I didn't know why I wanted to get into politics. I didn't know why, for me, helping people for me is all that I know how to do, right? But I never understood why that was the thing. And it kind of hit me not too long ago. It was a lot because of a little bit because of my mother, because she would take us to go to like soup kitchens and help to feed people throughout in the neighborhood.
So this is kind of where the services come from.
Yeah, and so I can remember being in 4th grade and going to schools and sitting there with my mom in front of like kindergarten kids, and my mom and I would read to them, right? So I wasn't the greatest reader, but I felt like these kids are like 5, 6 years old. I feel like it's part of my responsibility to do it. My mom would take us that way.
How old were you when you were doing this?
So I was 4th grade. What is that, like 8, 9?
Okay.
8, 9 years old. So I would read to like kindergartners, and then she would take us like soup kitchens, and we would feed people. But I think it was because those were on occasion. But I think when for me, what really pushed me into it was my father, and the fact that he was a youth track and field coach. And so what he did it for like 20 years. He did it for like as far as I can remember back. And he was one of the best youth track and field coaches known across the country. And really for him, watching him make sacrifices so that these young kids could go to college. So he was personally responsible for helping over like 20 young ladies get full scholarships to like Division I universities for track and field. Like these are inner city kids who don't come from a lot of means, don't have a lot of money, probably couldn't afford college on their own, but track was their vehicle. Like he saw that they could run, they had talent, so he cultivated that talent and helped them get into college. And I'm talking about these are like the University of Miami's, these are like the UCLA's, the University of Houston's, like South Carolina, the big track programs. Right. And so for me, it was just what he did. But as I got older, I was like, he sacrificed a lot in terms of the time. He didn't get paid for it. It was an unpaid position. I mean, he was out there Monday through Friday, and then on Saturdays going to track meets, like sometimes spending more time there than he was spending in the home sometimes, right? Because he felt like it was his responsibility to help them. And so, you know, for me, as I got older, I talked to my dad. I was like, you know, I think seeing you do that, and it was so natural for you, like I seen him pay for kids to have their flights to go to like nationals to a track meet that's in California.
Really?
Like pay out of his pocket for them to be able to go, because for them at 16, 17 years old, that was national exposure. Right. All the colleges are at these national events, so they're recruiting.
That's a big opportunity for them.
He would go out of his pocket for them to be able to go there and create opportunities and access to it. And so for me, you know, he would say, like, when you have a responsibility, when you get to a certain position and you have certain talents, to give back to other people, right? And so I think he instilled those type of traits in me. While as a kid, I didn't necessarily understand them, but as an adult, I definitely could appreciate them. And so that's kind of how I feel. I feel like it's, you know, I've been very fortunate in my life, where I've had access to opportunities I recognize that not everybody else had. And so I feel like I need to use my platform, my position, to sort of figure out how I can change the realities of struggle for people, the same way my dad did for these young kids.
Right. So yeah, it sounds like, you know, your mom and dad definitely influenced you greatly in a positive way to help develop your mindset a lot, which is true today, because a lot of those things that you talked about with your mom, you know, doing the thing in the soup kitchens and being just giving that service and seeing the sacrifices that your dad has made and the things that he's willing to do for people is definitely 100% rubbed off on you a lot. Yeah, and it is rubbed off on your mindset, and you can definitely tell that, because one of the reasons why I always like to find out and just hear people's stories is you just get to figure out and learn how they think and how their thought process is, and you get a different perspective on their way of life and things like that. And so you get the opportunity to learn a lot of new things, just seeing through the eyes of someone else. So, you know, I feel like a lot of those things that you've been able to have up to that point has definitely helped a lot. So, getting to the point where you made it into Pittsburgh, studying social work. What was that experience like? What was the college experience like for you?
So, actually, social work wasn't my first. Social work, I got my master's in social work. So I came here at 17. Really, my motivation for coming to Pitt wasn't the greatest motivation. When I talk to kids, I'm transparent and say, I really just came to Pitt, you know, because I want to get in my parents' house.
Oh, okay. Hey, that's real.
At 17 years old, I just want to like spread my wings and find myself. So I didn't visit Pitt. I didn't do anything.
I just need to get out of here.
And I was like, it's far enough away, but still in state where I could pay in-state tuition. You know what I mean? Right, yeah. So you know, looking back at it, it wasn't the best motivation and reasoning, but it was the best turnout that I could ever, you know, not even understood it was going to happen. And so I came here at 17, and I did communications as my bachelor's degree, and a minor in theater arts. I wanted to kind of be that guy on like the 6 o'clock news.
Oh, so you wanted to be on the news?
I wanted to be on the news. I wanted to be a TV news broadcaster.
Okay.
I wanted to be a local news broadcaster, but as you mentioned, like life has a funny way of pushing you in a kind of a different direction. And so I always tell people that I had 2 experiences in college, one in undergrad and one in grad, that pushed me down to the place where I feel like I lived my professional life at the intersection of social work, politics, and philanthropy. And so the first one was when I had, that's my sophomore, junior year, I had just joined my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. and a lot of what their focus is on, besides the partying and the step shows and things like that, is they're really community service driven. And so for me, it was the first opportunity I had as a 18, 19-year-old to step off of Pitt's campus and go into the Hill District and go into Homewood and go into parts of South Oakland. And I was able to see people who looked like me that, again, didn't have those same access to opportunities. And at that point is when I was like, okay, I have an opportunity to do something about it. So I said, I'm going to dedicate my life to a life of service, and I want to go into a helping profession. And so I still graduated with my communications degree because I was a junior by that time. I had to finish. But I said, I want to continue my education, further my education in a way where I can gain some skills academically that can help me to be a better advocate for people and to help people. And so that's how I kind of fell into social work. And then in the program, the MSW program, my second experience is what pushed me into kind of politics, which was, it had to be in 2011. It was my second semester of my first year of a 2-year program at Pitt. And then in 2010, in November, then Governor Corbett, who was a Republican governor before the current governor, Tom Wolf, he had just gotten elected. And in January or February, as every governor does every year, they give their proposed budget for the state of Pennsylvania on all the things that they want to spend across the Commonwealth. And one of the first things that he said he wanted to do was cut the budget for higher education for colleges and universities. And all the college universities across the state were in uproar. And for me, it was almost as if like God wiped the crust out of my eyes, and I could see for the first time, like, realize that there are people who are in these positions who don't look like us, who don't think like us, who don't understand what we're going through, our plight, that are making decisions every day about our quality of life. And for me, I realized that budget cut to Pitt meant that my tuition was going to go up. And so it impacted me directly, which meant that somebody who graduated from that program just a year before was going to get the same degree I was going to get, but they're going to pay less for it. And I didn't think that was right. So that's kind of why I realized that I wanted to, at that point, either put myself at the decision-making table or as close to the decision-making table as I possibly can.
So that was one of the seeds that kind of inspired you to go in that direction.
Yeah, and then trying to marry and bridge this gap between social work, because I'm a social worker at heart. Like I want to help people, and social work and politics. And when I would tell people I'm a social worker who's working in politics, they're like, those two don't make any sense. Like, social work is about actually helping people. Politics is about all this nonsense that goes on that we see on TV. But for me, they're both helping professions. And the way I bridge the gap is realizing that in social work, you're an advocate. You're an advocate for your clients. You're an advocate for the people that you serve. And politics is a helping profession too. Like, I see politicians or elected officials, if they do it the right way, they are social workers with a different level of influence because you represent people. You are their eyes and their ears and their voice in certain realms and certain aspects. And so you are an advocate for the people that you're supposed to represent. So that's how I kind of try to bridge the gap. And I just, realized how policy impacts people's everyday life. Right? And I talk to people and they're like, I don't like politics. I don't like to get into it. It's messy, it's this, it's that, which it is. But it's almost unavoidable. Like, no matter what you do, we all are living in a society where there's laws, there's rules, there's regulations. We're all governed by something. No matter what industry you're in, policy is going to impact that in some way, shape, or form. And so just trying to make that connection and realizing that for me as a social worker, looking at it from a macro perspective, macro level social work, policy fits within that because you're putting out policy prescriptions that's going to impact a large group of people. So that's kind of how I, got into the social work and politics. And so there was a moment where I just needed to step away from politics for a time. So
and why is that?
I loved when I was in it. I loved being able to help people who felt like they couldn't help themselves or they exhausted all their options, and I could do something as simple, as pick up a phone and call somebody and get their situation solved. And to them, I saved the world, but to me, I was just doing my job. So I love that piece of it. But I didn't like the politics of politics.
Yeah.
Right. So they say it's like making sausage, right? So
Yeah,
people,
I remember you saying this
yeah.
before.
So people like you grill sausage up, you eat it, the flavors, it tastes good. But if people really knew what went into making a sausage, they would they would think twice about actually eating it because it's all that nonsense. So in politics, there's a lot of backdoor deals. There's a lot of behind the scenes negotiations. Sometimes things are already determined before they even come to the public, right? And so for me as a social worker, it was challenging to see stuff like that, and to sort of have my moral compass challenged was difficult for me. So I had to take a step back, and I said, okay, I want to challenge myself in another kind of arena, and that's how I kind of fell into philanthropy. And so I worked as a program officer for about 3.5 years at a local foundation where I was able to continue my passion for people and social work, but from a less direct service type of way. So as a program officer, I was responsible for giving out grants, as I mentioned earlier, to different nonprofit organizations, and particularly African American organizations here in Allegheny County to help them carry forth their mission, to provide them with the resources that they need to provide direct services to the community. So it was a very rewarding experience. It allowed me to understand how much of a role philanthropy plays in Western Pennsylvania. There's millions and hundreds of millions of dollars just to get circulated around here. And, it was an invaluable experience for me. And so I want to take all of those experiences that I've had and then kind of come back full circle to the politics, especially because you look at what's going on in the climate right now in our society, not just at a federal level, but even here locally in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of change that's happening. There's a lot of shifts that are going on. And I think that we, again, need people who are willing to, challenge the status quo.
Absolutely.
That exists here in Pittsburgh. I always tell people I'm not afraid to shake up some trees because sometimes they need to be shaken up. And two, provide people with representation that actually works for them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah. So real quick, so what was it about, what was the best experience that you got out of doing the philanthropy?
Being able to give a grant to an organization and then being able to come back like as the grant is kind of cycle is ending and being able to see the impact, being able to actually do site visits and see the program and know that, I had a role in, approving this grant so they can have the funding. You go to there and you see the kids running around having a good time. They're in a safe space. Or you see kids who are learning, especially like young Black kids who are learning like coding, learning how to build websites, learning how to do apps and things like that. Or you see young kids who are learning like leadership development skills and they're learning how to, do a resume or learning how to do an interview and learning how to tie a tie. And I think for me, just knowing, and I'm not the type of person where I want to take credit for anything. I'd rather be kind of behind the scenes, and that's what I was able to do. But then when I would go, it just brings a smile to my face. It's like, I feel like I did a good deed and a good job because, this kid who may never know that had something to do with this program being offered to them, they're going to have a better quality of life because I sat down and said, okay, well, we want to support your organization because I know you're doing good work and I know you need the money to be able to do the direct service in the community. So for me, it was just very rewarding to be able to see the byproduct and the results of going through the process of reviewing applications, approving them, and actually seeing them being implemented.
Nice. So you took a little break out of politics, got into philanthropy for, you say, about 3 years?
About 3 years.
Okay, and then you want to get back into politics. So what inspired you to want to get back into it?
So, yeah, that's a great question. So, and this is a simple answer, and it's going to sound cliche or textbook, but it really is how I feel. And the same thing that motivated me to get into social work in the first time, the same thing that motivated me to get into philanthropy, the same thing that's motivated me in politics, and that's people. You know what I mean? That really is being able to hear people's stories about the challenges and the struggles of reality that people are going through, and knowing that, okay, I have a platform and a position and a sphere of influence where I can make somebody's life a little bit easier. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm always looking for what is that platform for me to do that, right? And so for me, coming back and running for a state representative's office, I've had some experience in working in the office like that, so I kind of understand how politics works here locally in Pittsburgh, as well as how it works at the Capitol in Harrisburg. So I have that experience, and I've just seen so many ways on how that can really, move people beyond their current conditions. And for me, again, it goes back to what I feel like it's my responsibility, because I've had so many opportunities. I've been able to have a great education, come to Pittsburgh, have a great quality education, high education. I've been able to always have gainful employment, right? I became a first-time home buyer at the age of 27.
Nice.
Right? So I realized that not everybody has those or has had those same opportunities. So now if I have a chance to create that for somebody else, and I realize that me being where I'm at right now, there's a lot of people who came before me that I will never see in my life. You go back to the civil era time, where civil rights time, where people made sacrifices that allowed me to have these opportunities. So for me, it's like, okay, I need to sacrifice and do something so kids, 2 generations from now that I will never meet,
so you can pay it forward.
Can have a better life, and then they can. But for them to understand, like, I'm here because somebody else. I'm standing on somebody else's shoulders. Right. And so then they can continue to pay it forward. It's like it's a cycle.
Right. So something interesting. So for somebody that may be watching that may be interested in maybe getting into politics, and they may be kind of double dutching with it right now. They're not quite sure if they want to get into it. And from you got into it, you got out and got back into it again. What would you say with somebody that is thinking about getting into politics? What do you think their mindset should be going into it, or what are some good things that they should do to be able to get themselves into that line of work?
So I'll say a few things. That first, I would say, know your intentions. Like, don't go into it for the wrong reasons.
Right.
If you're not going,
that's what I was kind of hitting at.
If you're not going into it to help people, one, people can see through it. People can see if you're disingenuous, and don't think because you may have a degree or all that, or you have certain experiences, that it just automatically qualifies you for the position. Because the reality of it is, when I'm going around talking to people and the community, as everyday citizens, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Right.
Yeah.
And so you can say, I have all these degrees, I worked at this place, and I'm the person, but if they can't tell that you actually care enough to give a damn about them, they ain't gonna support you.
Right.
So don't go into it thinking that you're gonna gain this following, or you're gonna be famous, or you're gonna do whatever. If your intention is not pure, don't do it. One, because I don't want to call you a colleague, because you're in the wrong profession.
Right.
And then after that, I would say you're gonna have to have some tough skin. It's not for people who have thin skin or can't take some pushback or some ridicule or some critique or criticism, because that comes with the territory. The reality of it is, when you represent a large group of people, every time you're not going to be able to make everybody happy. At the same time, there's always going to be people who are going to be critical of you, and they're going to call you out on it. And so if you can't handle that, then you're probably not going to be in the right profession. That is if you want to actually be the elected official and run for office. Now, what I tell people is, a lot of times when they think about politics, they think about just that one thing. But it's the same thing like in sports, right? And if you want to be in sports, you want to be a basketball player or a football player, the chances of you actually making it into the league are like
very
slim to none.
Right.
Slim to none. But don't let that be your limited perspective. Like, that's the only thing you can do in sports. You can do sports management. You can be a athletic manager. You can be on the radio or on TV in sports. So you can still be connected to it without having to be the face of it. Right. So same thing with politics. I tell people, and this is bothers. I don't say it bothers me, but it gives me some cause for concern when I talk to people like, hey, are you interested? Would you want to get involved in politics? A lot of times people find the first thing to do is find reasons why they don't want to get into it versus finding reasons why they should get into it. Right? A lot of people say, oh, I can't do it because of this, or I can't do it because of that. But they're thinking about you running for office. But you can be a legislative assistant. You can be a staff person for elected official, where you don't have to be the face of it, you don't have to carry all the brunt of it. You can work on campaigns, right? So you can knock on doors for somebody that you believe in. You can work on policy. So if you're one of those people who are like, book smart people, and you still want to help people, you can write policies for legislators. So there's different things within government and politics that you can get involved in that aren't just being the elected official. And I will argue that a lot of times the staff people of elected officials are really the ones who have a lot of influence, because a lot of times in order to get to the elected official, you have to go through their staff. Right? You have to build relationships with their staff, and their staff kind of open access to the elected officials. So there's different things. If people are interested in it, my first recommendation would be to volunteer on a campaign. Go find somebody that you believe in, what their vision and their mission is for the area that they want to represent, that you live in, and go knock on some doors and get to know people who are your neighbors, and then kind of get a feel for that, and maybe that will open up an opportunity for you to maybe intern for them or become a staff or something like that. So there's ways that you can kind of get into it and kind of like dip your toe in it to see if you like it, and then kind of back out if you realize it's not for you.
Nice. Okay. So let's talk about your campaign a little bit.
Sure.
Kind of get into the portion of what you're doing now and some of the goals that you're looking to accomplish at this moment in time. So how is the campaign going right now for you?
The campaign is going very well, very well. We are, we're meeting and exceeding expectations right now, and, just trying to push forward. And I tell people all the time, like, I am not necessarily a politician. I'm a regular social worker, everyday person. And so the things that I want to see in communities and neighborhoods are things that people want to see, right? We want to see good quality education for kids. We want to see employment opportunities for people. We want to see good transportation. We want to see people being able to stay in their neighborhoods as development comes to certain areas. So for me, it is being able to articulate that our vision for the district is the vision that people want, and we're offering representation, like I said, that actually works for people. So one of the big issues that we're seeing right now is we're knocking on doors and going to different community events and talking with people is, and it's a Pittsburgh region thing as well, not just in my district. It's this challenge of, people are fearful right now that they are going to get cleansed from their neighborhoods through the means of economics, right? As development is coming to different areas and different segments and neighborhoods across the city, people are concerned that they're not going to be able to afford to live here. You know what I mean? And so as Pittsburgh is shifting and it is becoming more of a meds and eds technology kind of town.
Definitely tech.
I tell people, one of my things is I don't want to be in Pittsburgh in 10 and 15 years and we're trying to answer the same questions, right? And same challenges. And we have a Pittsburgh where half the people are living like the Jetsons and the other half are living like the Flintstones. That's kind of what we have right now. Yeah. Right? People are really struggling, but other people are taking off and they're catching that wave, while others are getting left behind, right? And so, for me, trying to think about this cognitive dissonance or tension between how do you build people and how do you build place at the same time, right? Because it's complex and it's very nuanced, right? Me as a social worker, I'm always trying to build people. I'm always trying to give them the tools that they need to adapt to society. But also I understand that neighborhoods need to be invested in. And a lot of times these neighborhoods that are in my district just don't get the investment that other neighborhoods do. So we want to invest in them. We want to build them up. We want them to look like they're in the 21st century. Right. We don't want to have blight in our communities. We want to have businesses in there. But, we also don't want to displace people. Right? Because you look at displacement and gentrification, but you also have to take into consideration what that does for poverty concentration, right? So when you move people who are low income because they can no longer afford it to other neighborhoods, then you start to have those neighborhoods then have that issue of everybody in there is low income or they're impoverished. Right. And we know from data and statistics that when you have neighborhoods and communities that everybody is impoverished, you start to see more challenge. You start to see the quality of education in those neighborhoods is not as good. The after-school programming is not necessarily the same. The rates of crime go up because people don't have good education, so they're underemployed or they're unemployed. You have overly policed neighborhoods because the crime is higher. And this is what I always tell people. One of the reasons why I wanted to get in politics and why I love it is because I don't have to necessarily be an expert on any single subject, right? So I don't have to just focus on education. I don't have to just focus on transportation or jobs or safe communities, because what I realize is that all of these things are, you look at the social and economic forces that create opportunities for success for people. All of them are interconnected and they're reinforcing, right? So I can't just think about being an advocate for education and quality education without thinking about, crime in neighborhoods, or think about development in neighborhoods, or having housing in neighborhoods. Because if you don't have the quality housing in neighborhoods, people aren't going to want to move to those communities. And if people aren't moving to those communities, then they're not paying the taxes to help to grow the tax base, to go back into the public education system. Or people are choosing to move out into the suburbs because they know that the education system is not as strong as it is in the suburbs as it is it's not strong in the city as it is in the suburbs. Right. So all of these things are connected. You look at development when it comes to communities, and you're building, condominiums, or you're building multi-purpose, multi-use spaces. You can't do that without thinking about transportation, because you want to have it on the main transportation line so people can get to and from there. So all of these things, if your core competency is one thing, it's also going to be impacted by something else. And in politics and being elected official, you kind of have your hand in all those things. So you can kind of see that chessboard from like a higher view, so you can realize how to connect the dots and move the pieces around a little bit.
Is there any one particular issue that you want to conquer in over all the other ones that you feel like will benefit other people the most?
It's that's difficult to really say, because I value every issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's at hand. But for me, I think it goes back to, because education is so important to me. I always say that quality education should be ubiquitous, right? So it should be, no matter what your zip code is, no matter where you live, you should be able to have a great quality education. So whether you live in Upper St. Clair or you live in the Hill District, you know what I mean? You should have, the newest technology. You shouldn't have outdated textbooks, right? Teachers should feel like the environment is comfortable for them to be able to teach. Students should feel like the environment is comfortable for them to be able to learn, right? You don't get that. Like there's a disparity in some schools. And so for me, and I've been in schools, and the environment and the culture is, it doesn't feel like it's one where learning is really being fostered, right? Because they're dealing with so many other issues. And so just trying to think about, how do you invest in quality, public education, so that, students who grow up in a certain zip code have the same opportunity as somebody who grows up in a zip code where they're more affluent, right? So somebody that doesn't have a lot of money is not forced down this pathway of not having certain successes in life. And so for me, one of the big things is universal pre-K, full day pre-K. Because you understand, trying to get to the kids early, before they start to like have certain perceptions or certain thoughts about who they are and what's
you
going on.
want to start to mold that good influence on them.
And so you want them to enter into kindergarten and first grade socially, emotionally, cognitively prepared. And so quality education for me, I understand how it was so vital to my success and me being where I am and accomplishing things that I've been able to do. That I think that we need to invest in those type of educational opportunities where kids can be able to have, be whatever they want to be. If they want to be a teacher, they can be a teacher, right? But that also means that we need to support the teachers who are in school so that kids can see people who look like them. Right. Kids can or, for me, I always like to go out and speak to students at different schools and say, okay, look, Here are other career opportunities that you may not have even known existed. When I was their age, I didn't know what philanthropy was. Right. I didn't know what a foundation was, but somebody exposed me to that, and I was able to use that to to do some really good things. So, just trying to think about how do we, get to these kids at a young age so that their perception isn't controlled by what they just see in their environment. Right. They realize that they can be anything that they really want to be.
Absolutely. So moving forward in like the next, couple years, some of the big goals that you're looking to accomplish, where do you see yourself in the next year, 2 years, 5 years from now?
Hopefully I'm a state representative.
Right, exactly. That's the big goal.
That's the big goal. That's a big goal, state representative.
Uh-huh.
So for me, I want to continue down this path of government and politics, just because I understand the impact that it can have. So, and it's one of those things here that, especially in Western Pennsylvania, but I get this a lot of times, is that I'm too young to run, or supposed to wait your turn type of thing. I don't really that's not a model that necessarily fits well with me.
Right.
And so, but I also hear a lot of times this false narrative that young people aren't interested in what's going on around us. We're really self-centered. We're in this instant gratification kind of society, and I kind of want to be the antithesis to that narrative. And I want to show that young people care about what's going on. They want to get involved, and hopefully I can motivate and encourage other young people to say, okay, well, because a lot of times we believe in what we can see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of religion, of course, we can believe in what we can see, but when you start to see people who look like you that are doing things that you never thought about, then it can motivate you to do that. So I want to kind of continue down this path in politics, because you don't really see a lot of people who look like us,
right,
that are doing it. A lot of times this field and industry is dominated by older, gray-haired white men.
Right.
This is called what it is.
Yeah.
Right. But they get to make decisions about everybody.
Right.
So for me, that is my, I guess, for the near future, one, to continue my way down politics. I would love to, run for a higher office at some point if the opportunity presents itself. Like Western Pennsylvania has never had an African American state senator, right? Let alone never had an African American mayor, right? So you have places like down the deep South, like the most sort of Republican thinking areas, or that have had African American mayors of their cities.
Mm-hmm.
And Pittsburgh, who was supposed to be a progressive city, so they say, a progressive city, but progressive, certainly, it means something different to different people,
mm-hmm.
right? So it's supposed to be a progressive city, but you haven't had, really the diversity, and not just in government and politics, but across the board, in the for-profit sector, in the non-profit sector. Pittsburgh is this old boy network kind of town, and it's hard to kind of crack that ceiling to get through. And so if I can use my platform in the political world, then even open up opportunities in other sectors, in the for-profit sector, in the business sector, in the nonprofit sector, then I want to use that to be able to, again, make sure that Pittsburgh really is living up to its principles and its ideals of being progressive and diverse and inclusive of everybody. So, politics is what it is for me for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always open to whatever is the best platform that I can use to help people.
Nice. I mean, and this platform is all about. I mean,
Absolutely.
bringing on, accomplished guests that are making moves, and people who are movers and shakers, trying to make a positive impact on the community and be able to share their work and be able to reach people that they may have not been able to reach before.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's what this is all about. So, what's the legacy, that you see for yourself? I mean, we both still young men.
Yeah.
But where do you see like your legacy going in the future, or what's like the message that you really want to get across to people whenever you encounter them? Like, what's the meaning that you really would like to get across to people?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So for legacy, and I do this on my social media, like my Twitter
Mm-hmm.
page. It has something that I put on there, that your legacy is not determined by what you did yesterday, but rather by what you do today, right? So it's not just about what you've done in the past. Every day is an opportunity for you to build that reputation, for you to build that legacy. So don't just dwell on something you accomplished, yesterday, or 5 or 10 years in the past, and let that define who you are, because every day is a new opportunity to define your legacy and the mark you want to leave on society.
Right.
And so for me, every day, I don't tweet that much,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a daily tweet. No matter if that's the only tweet that I do that day, I say, be better today than you were yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple. # daily tweet.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's just a constant reminder that says, okay, I have an opportunity now that both my feet hit the ground this morning when I wake up, to just be a better human being in every aspect of what I'm doing today. And for me, that's part of what I want my legacy to be. But when I look back at it, I probably want to be known as a man of vision and a man of purpose, right? So somebody that understood and was a forward-thinking person that had the 30,000 up level of a vision and can see kind of that bigger picture, and then navigated the certain pieces to be able to get people through that vision. And then somebody that they can say he had a purpose in life, like he sacrificed a lot so that other people after him would be able to have opportunities. And when I always talk to particularly young people, I tell them it's okay to be different. Right, a lot of times people get ridiculed or made fun of because they're different. Right. But I always tell people, like, don't allow somebody else's opinion of you to define your reality and who you are. Because there's haters out there. People will say whatever they want to say about you, especially as you're becoming successful. People will say, "Oh, they didn't deserve that. What did they do?" But you can't let that affect you and impact you. You have to some degree ignore the ignorance. Right.
I don't mean to cut you off, but one of the things that as you were talking that I always think about to your point of people, they feel like they're different. One of the things I always say is use your difference to make a difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, if you feel like you're different, you have a unique take on things that other people can't really do. So, like I always think of it as, if you're different, use your difference to make a difference.
Yeah. So I really hope that people, when it's all said and done, that people will look back at my career, what I've done, and say, Aerion, he wasn't perfect, but he cared enough to give a damn about people. And you can see it through his actions. And any advice that I would give to, and I give this to young people all the time, is, keep a small circle, right?
That's interesting. Why is that?
Keep a small circle, especially as you are kind of accomplishing certain things. People want to tag on to your success for the wrong reasons.
I have noticed that as well.
And so it's like, it's almost like don't ride in the car and let somebody ride shotgun that ain't got no gas money. You know what I mean? Like they just want to go on a trip with you. They want to get to your destination with you, but they ain't giving no gas money. So it's like surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, so you can learn from. But keep it tight, and keep it in a sense where surround yourself with people who have just as much to lose as you do, who have something at risk that you do. Because if you're circling yourself around with people who have nothing to lose, they'll make decisions that aren't in your best interest, and it'll impact you negatively, right? If they have nothing to risk, then they don't understand kind of the effort and the time and the commitment that it takes for you to get where you need to be. And so it's almost like we all go through stages of development in our life, where you realize that at some point you can't do the same things you did in high school.
Oh, right?
Yeah. So you can't be hanging around people. I mean, we all know people in our lives that they still do the same things that we did when we were in high school. Yeah. Like you can't hang around those people all the time anymore. You got to keep that circle tight, because if they have nothing to lose, they'll be more reckless. Right. And it'll impact you. People who have something to lose, they're not impulsive. Right. They think twice about their decisions. They think about both the intended and the unintended consequences. Right. Not only how it's going to impact them, but how it's going to impact the people around you. So those are the people you want to be
Absolutely.
around. People who are like-minded. Right. As you, people who are going places like you're trying to go places.
Right. Absolutely. And to your point, I mean, and we can get on this a little bit more, because this is a topic that excites me a little bit. As far as like the people that you surround yourself with, I feel like you definitely are going to have people that are still doing the same things that they done when they're in high school, and I mean that's going to happen. But I feel like you can still be friends with them, still have a connection with them, but always try to add on people of influence that are in life where you want to be, or they're like, to your point, or smarter than you, or they have a big dream or just a greater thought process. I mean, one of the great things that I love about doing this show, a great benefit for me, is I get the chance to sit down with great people and build up relationships and things like that. So even just doing this, just having an inner circle of people that are making big moves or just doing great things and finding out what their mindset are and just bumping arms with those kind of people is highly beneficial.
Absolutely.
I highly recommend people, maybe even go to networking events or even just, maybe connecting with somebody on social media, but do it the right way. And try to just build up relationships with people that are, in life where you want to be, or just, have a great mindset and just doing things that you feel like you can collaborate with them with. So, I love that a lot. So having, and it's always like 6 people. I mean, because when you said a small circle, and it's always like 6 people that influence you the most. So if you can have 6 people in your life that are influencing you and influencing your mindset in a positive direction, you want to try to always improve that inner circle. So I think you made a lot of good points.
And they say sit down and take a look at your 5-6 closest friends. And if you think about it, you are a combination of them.
Absolutely.
You are who you associate with.
Exactly.
Right. And that is the one of the realest things. And so for me personally, I'm always about growth. Right. So I realized, so I'm getting married at the end of this year.
Congrats.
August 26th. Yep. Thank you. And so I realized that now that I'm in a committed relationship, I have a fiance, I can't necessarily go to the club every Saturday. You know what I mean? So it was like
I got some responsibilities now.
Yeah. So when my single homeboys are hitting me up like, yo, let's go to the club, let's go, these women, we're gonna get some drinks. It's
like dog,
I can't do that. Like it's like, but you don't want to be offensive to them because they're like, oh, you changed. It's like, no, but I should not be around temptation like that. Like, come on, that's not even smart. But it's not that
they should understand. Not even send the invite. Like, let's do something else.
Right. But so you can't do that. But so now I'm trying to surround myself with people who are married, so I can glean from them. I can learn about their experiences, or people who are in committed and serious relationships. Because it's like, if I'm going to take my relationship serious, I don't know everything, so I got to learn something from somebody else. People who've been through it.
As you're talking, it's like you are who you associate with. And I think you may have said that, but if not, I mean that's pretty much what it is. Yeah. And there was something I was about to say, but can't remember right now, but it's all good. But no, it's all good. Oh, now I remember. If one of the things that I said on a post on my Facebook not too long ago is like, if you wanted to make the biggest change in 2018, the biggest thing you need to change is your association. If you change that alone, because the 2 things that I found that influence your mindset the most, well, actually 3 things. I'm sorry. The people you associate with, the books you read, and the things that you listen to. So that's actually one of the reasons why I got into media, because and number 4 would be visuals too, because you got pictures and things like that. So those 4 things influence you the most. So if you're not, aware of your surroundings or the thing that people are speaking into your life and what people are saying and what they're doing, like, and you're just careless around the people that are around you, those things are going to rub on you without you even knowing it. And so so if people want to truly make change in their life, they got to change their association they're around, or just evaluate the people around them, because what I have found is that you are the people you associate with. So at the end of the day, but we could go on and on. I know we're limited on time. So just in wrapping up, what would be the best place where people can reach you or get in contact with you if they wanted to do an internship or help with the campaign or anything like that?
Absolutely. I don't know if you can put a website at the bottom.
We can do that.
My name is not the easiest to spell. You know what I'm saying? So So my website is votearionabney.com. So www.votearionabney.com.
Okay.
And they can go on there. They can learn about the vision, the platform. They can learn a little bit more about me and my background. They can sign up to volunteer. They can donate.
Right. Yeah, we need that too.
Takes money to be able to do it. So they can donate. They can volunteer. They can sign up so we can have their email, so we can constantly, as we're moving forward in the campaign, they can stay updated. Also, they can go onto our Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/Aerion Andrew Abney, and you'll see our the campaign political page. Also, I'm on Twitter, AAA2. And then I'm on Instagram, atypical_.
Okay.
So we're all on all the social media platforms. The website is up. We definitely will need some volunteers. This is a really grassroots campaign. We're going to need people to help knock on doors, help to get petitions, help to pass out flyers and literature, people to work the day of election. So it's a lot to do. It's a lot of planning and organizing. So we need all hands on deck, all the support that we possibly can get.
Nice. And I definitely, what I like about doing these episodes is like, this is almost like a time capsule. So in like maybe a year from now, we can actually look back on this episode and be like, oh, I said that and I accomplished those things too. So we can definitely, in a year, 2 years from now, we can actually even do a recap video.
Okay.
And see where you're at in that point in time. So I definitely appreciate you being on the show. Definitely appreciate the conversation. I definitely want to be able to continue to build on this relationship and continue to see your journey, because I'm definitely excited to see where you're going. So I appreciate the viewers that are watching too. Hopefully people that are watching, they get a lot of value out of it too. So as we wrap up, now that you know what Aerion does with his 24 hours, I want to know what you do with your 24 hours. Definitely like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and we will see you on the next episode next Friday.